Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi there, this is Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance, where our business is the success of your business. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, facilitator, and your co-host along with Scott Rust of the Elevate Business Podcast. The Elevate Business Podcast is a journey of discovery fueled by curiosity to genuinely understand what makes people tick when it comes to their professional path, choices made, and the personal characteristics that drive performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately success. The Elevate Business Podcast is here to promote the enormous contribution of small and medium-sized businesses around the world by exploring the actions that make a workplace successful, the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of an organization, and how we build whole person leaders from the ground up. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, growing our learning edges, and honoring our passions with a special guest who has elevated their businesses, overcome obstacles, and inspires others to do the same. So glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to episode number 50 of the Elevate Business Podcast. Both myself, Ange McCabe, and Scott Russ are your hosts. We have the pleasure of introducing you to Jennifer Flanagan, a TedX speaker, thought leader, and advocate for youth STEM education in Canada. As president and CEO at Actua, Jennifer empowers her team to achieve excellence and fulfill their mission to prepare youth for the future of work. She has been a long-time advocate for the empowerment of girls and young women and recipient of multiple awards, including Canada's Top 100 Most Powerful Women, Ottawa's 40 Under 40, and RBC Women Entrepreneur of the Year in the social change category. We're ecstatic to have her join us here today. Welcome, Jennifer.
So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, especially, can't believe it, Scott. Jump in here. It's our 50th episode of the podcast. So we're very lucky to have you and showcase your business, Actua, at the same time.
Congratulations. That's remarkable. 50 is a lot to have under your belt. So kudos on that.
It is, especially starting only about 6 or 7 months ago, I think, Ange.
Yeah.
Maybe
yes.
8 months, if I've corrected there. But anyways, yeah, it's quite exciting.
It is.
And, we appreciate you having Jennifer on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe
I feel honored to be the 50th.
There you go.
I will try to deliver.
We're sure you will, for sure. So Jennifer, tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, some of the milestones that you had, and about your business, Actua.
My name is Jennifer Flanagan, and I am president and CEO of Actua, also one of the co-founders of the business. We are a national not-for-profit organization, so actually registered as a charity in Canada, and have been around for over 25 years now. So I started out with this incredible community, and I'll explain why I call it a community. But I started about 25 years ago when I was doing my undergraduate degree at UNB, and fortuitously came across this opportunity to start a science and engineering camp for kids. And it was as simple as that. It was just this basic concept of kids not having the opportunity to learn early on what was involved in these fields, to get excited about it, to be inspired by it. And that started the ball rolling. I spent, what I call the best summer of my life traveling around the province. And that core of getting kids excited about science and technology continues to be what drives our organization today, decades later. And now the organization engages 400,000 youth across the country. We represent a network of 43 local organizations who employ 1,000 undergraduate students. So the geographic footprint's big, the reach and delivery mechanism is big, but the focus remains the same, which is the importance of early engagement in science and technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what was it when you first got started out of that undergraduate year and had the best summer of your life that inspired you to be able to support youth around science and technology? Was it something personal to you? What was that experience that kind of brought everything together at first?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So it was a couple of things. One was I was deeply inspired and attracted to the equity work that was being done as part of this job or part of this role. So when we were traveling across the province in New Brunswick, we were visiting very remote communities. We were visiting Indigenous communities. We were working with youth facing various socioeconomic challenges. And it was incredibly clear that not all youth had the opportunity to have these types of experiences. And that struck me. And then, certainly as many, I think, entrepreneurs at the time, there's not a lot of clarity about how it's all going to come together. But for me, the pieces that were critical were that social justice piece around equity and education, the science and technology piece, and recognizing how critical those are for this country, for future economic development, and just how fun and exciting they are as fields. And then the last piece really is around the business of it. And I was always attracted to leadership. I knew I wanted to lead in some way. And so those three things kind of propelled me forward in what Actua has become.
Mm-hmm. And so through all of these priorities and things that matter to you in building Actua, what has been the biggest learning as a leader for you?
Well, I think, as an organization, we still consider ourselves to be very entrepreneurial. And to me, that comes from a continual openness and commitment to learning. And so learning as an organization and being flexible and responsive to the people that we care deeply about impacting and the communities that we work in. But as a leader, and especially as a leader who has stayed with the same organization for so long, and that's not common these days. And especially for someone like me, I'm a builder. I love growth. I love, new strategies. I love big goals. All of those things get me super excited. And I've been able to continue to feel like I can achieve those things within this organization. And that's because we've been through, a million lifetimes. We've grown and developed, and things in our environment and context have grown so dramatically. Education has changed, science and tech has changed. The whole world has become more aware of the critical importance of science over the past 18 months. Yes. So for me as a leader, it's been about learning, and it's been about surrounding myself with the absolute best people that I possibly can. And those two things, I think I was lucky enough to learn early on, and have really remained the key tenets of my leadership over the past 20 years.
So I'm hearing two key things there, Jennifer, you've highlighted. One is continuous learning for yourself, and then surrounding yourself with the best people to be able to achieve excellence or achieve on the goals that you're seeking for the organization. What are some of the ways that you've maybe invested in yourself personally, if we look at one of them or look at them separately here? I think you feel as adapt as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been so fortunate to have incredible, both an incredible team of colleagues to work with who are, who come at this from many different perspectives, very committed and top level board members and governance of organizations is such an important part of how you execute on your strategy. For me, I would say, I've always had a very strong sense of vision, and as I've said, big goals are very attractive to me. So it's really been about how that gets executed. How, for me, action is really important. So I can tell a beautiful story, and I do, and I can, talk about impacts, but I also am very confident and proud of the fact that that's all very rooted in hundreds of thousands of impacts locally in evidence-based models, in research that demonstrates how we're impacting the youth that we're serving. So those things for me as a leader, that practitioner perspective, the practical perspective of actually taking action and achieving impact, as well as the vision piece and continuing to be that the person who is looking ahead and making sure that we're positioning ourselves to continuously be relevant.
And there's a really strong point in there, Jennifer, with regards to taking that from a place of vision to action, because oftentimes, we see as leaders that it's busy and there can be distractors, and sometimes there can be those shiny silver balls that attract us as well, from the seats that we sit in. But we're looking to hear a little bit more with regards to your vision around your team and how you create that environment for your team to thrive.
So, that, and I would say that's constantly evolving, and it's so interesting right now with what we've all been through over the past 18 months. And I can say that I've never before been more grateful for the team that I have, their ability to move the way that they moved, but also to continue to support the rest of the Actua team has been quite remarkable. But so much of the team dynamic that we're used to has been thrown off over the past 18 months. And I've been spending a lot of time over the past few months sort of understanding and looking at that. So when you think about leadership and how things work to support and mobilize teams, it's also about really being aware of the current realities, right? And things that worked 2 years ago with this team are not working today. And so I've been spending a lot of time really understanding where the team is, and that's interviews, that's external. We have an external coach right now who has already dramatically, impacted the way we're able to work together. So we're this incredible, high functioning, very committed team of people who have been isolated from one another and from everything else over the past 18 months and in a place now where we have to both figure out how our company moves forward and how we continue to provide the absolute best service to our stakeholder groups, but also what does this team need to perform at its top level. And for them, that's been a lot of, individual coaching, team coaching, conversations about how we're working together. And the other big shift, I would say just quickly that I've loved as a leader is that I would say prior to the pandemic, I was very externally focused. So building our brand, building the profile of the organization, doing all of the external relations work that's so critical, the thought leadership work. And the pandemic's given me the opportunity to focus a bit more internally and, making sure that our systems are shored up and, the kind of like boring things around, well, for me around operations, but that I know are so essential to kind of propelling that next phase of growth. So I know right now that's what my team is looking, to me to provide is we're operating at a very high level. How do we tweak things to, to go even further? And I think that's probably the best place we could possibly be.
Exactly. And to further that thought, Jennifer, I mean, we're hearing from a lot of our clients as well that it's one of the most predominant times where employers and organizations see their team members as assets. And, so they're looking at shoring up efficiencies or operationally, but they're also looking to reinvest. So to your point, coaches, group coaching, facilitations and workshops. There was a couple other things in there that you had mentioned. It really highlighted some things for your team. And one of the biggest things that I see in a lot of HR chat groups and in general is, people asking the questions as to what's going on with your organization and what has been the biggest thing that has been impacted. So as you looked at how the past 18 months, if you could name like top 3 or 4 things, what have been the biggest impact to your team that has required you to reach out to the coaching and group coaching and such?
Well, I would say one is the heaviness that comes with, we support 43 organizations across the country that do this work at a community level, and face-to-face delivery is our biggest mechanism for reaching youth. That has not been possible, right? And that has created financial stress. It's created all kinds of issues within that local network. So it's been, and we have stepped up to provide support to ensure the organization's long-term sustainability, but kind of shouldering some of that stress that's happening locally, which is really part of our role, has been heavy for people. And so recognizing the heaviness of it, also recognizing, and I think this has been such a key learning for everybody around leadership in the pandemic, is that, this separation of private life, personal life and work life is just not, it's not feasible, and I've long said to my team, like, I recognize that real life happens and real life happens at work. And I never want people to feel like that separation is so significant that it causes tension and stress. So, we very much view our team as a family, and people have endured a lot of personal challenges, myself included, online schooling for kids and a whole bunch of other things that have made it incredibly, incredibly difficult over the past year and a half. So there's that. There's also then, on a very, positive note, two things. One is we have the attention of the world around the importance of scientific advancement, the importance of research, the importance of scientific literacy. And so this is a moment to sort of catapult the work that we do, to say, yes, science really matters, and scientific literacy matters. And there's a whole bunch of people who have been left out from that, a whole bunch of youth groups, and we need to do a better job at engaging them. And so we have that platform and that opportunity. And so our work has never before been more important. The opportunities have never before been more plentiful in terms of partners that want to work with us. So it's this, recognizing the pain and the heaviness, but also then saying, we've got work to do, right? There's a lot on the table here, and our work is critically important in that post-pandemic recovery period.
And I really appreciate the passion that you bring to what you're talking about, Jennifer. You're talking about you've talked a little bit about the past and how you've looked to support your staff. And so what about looking towards the future? What are the opportunities you're looking to embrace, or how are you looking to create that environment for your staff to be able to continue to step up despite some of the challenges and uncertainties that continue to face businesses, across.
Yeah, and the uncertainty for companies like ours, around reopening and around face-to-face work, and we have a beautiful collaborative workspace, and when can people come back, and what is that going to look like? I genuinely, and I have said this to my team over the past several times over the past months, is I want people to love coming to work. And, it's that simple. And I think it embodies everything that we're trying to achieve, which is, I know that the people who work here care deeply about what they do. I know that they are driven by impact, they're driven by results, they're driven by evidence. And for them to at the end of the day say, I love coming to work every day, it means that they are having that impact. They're working at their top level. We're utilizing their skills. They have the support that they need. They're able to provide leadership and ownership. And I think it's just really important. And we've all recognized this, that people really enjoy what they do, and that they have fun. And I want, there's nothing stopping us. I say this all the time. Look, we want to establish ourselves as an institution in this space, in the sense that what we do is important, and what we do is vital to the innovation economy in this country. But we also are nimble and flexible, and we can create this the way that we want to create it. And that means for me that if there's something we can do in a better way, in a different way, everything's on the table for renewal. So that's kind of the challenge that I've put out to people, to say, not to absolve myself of it, but to say, like, how do we as a team leading create that workspace and that environment for everybody that participates, whether that's a funder, whether that's a board member, whether that's, a member of their teams. And that's, as you said, you mentioned the coaching. A big part of it is that. And I'm a super believer in coaching and the importance of it. And I love that they're all we're doing it together. And I haven't done that before. I've certainly supported other people getting coaching, or me always having an executive coach, but doing it as a team, I think is going to be, it's going to be a great experience. And I do believe it's going to enable us to kind of build, level up to the next, that next phase that's going to be necessary for us to absorb the growth that's coming our way.
And when you're talking about leveling up and the engagement and trust and accountability that you put in your team members, what about the performance side of things? So at Actua, what type of performance management is in place, or programs per se?
So, we hold ourselves accountable to a set of, performance indicators as a team that we're all sort of, we all buy into, we're all aware of, and kind of stand behind. People know how they contribute. And performance management, such an interesting area, especially right now. And that's actually part of what we're re-exploring, right? Is as we've grown, we went from a team of, say, when you're a team of 15 or 20, you can do performance management in very different ways. People are all working together. There's more connection. I have more connection to everybody. When you start to get up to 30 to 40 people, you need to have more formality in those systems. And with that, I'm always afraid that we're going to lose the kind of personal performance discussions, right? Yeah. By operationalizing it.
Yes.
And so we're actually working on that right now, is like, what's the best mechanism? What we know, and what I know as a leader and doing this, is that it's feedback loops and how people give and receive feedback to me, to their colleagues, to the people that they supervise is critically important. And I want to make sure that people have the tools and the kind of practical skills to be able to do that. And it's really tough. Like, we know that, so many problems exist within organizations where that feedback is not possible, or people are afraid of tough conversations. And I've been lucky to be aware of the importance of that. And I don't shy away from conflict. Like, personally, I kind of just want everything on the table to advance. So, I look forward. I'll come back to you on your 100th podcast, and I'll tell you exactly what we developed in terms of how we manage that performance. But I will say that I have a team who are like data driven, and so they apply that to their own performance as well, just naturally, which is part of how we work.
Right, and there's so many questions that come up with performance right now because, gone are the days of putting a systematic performance management program. Oftentimes clients and organizations, for that matter, are looking for a program that includes that full person. It's not just about the evidence-based measures, which are important to have those goalposts for sure, but it's how do we set it, agree upon it mutually, and it have direct impact, not just within that role, but to the department and the organization. So cascading. And then injecting that kind of quote unquote subjective side of things, how do we include these into discussion so that it's not something that's good, bad, or indifferent. It's something that's mattered. And we're talking about it from a place of continuous improvement versus you're doing wrong or right. And then
it's like, I look at it as tweaking versus fixing.
Exactly.
Right. And just like, I used to use the word fix a lot. And in fact, it was my executive coach who was like, you say the word fix all the time. Like, it's not, which means things are broken, but she's like, these systems are actually producing at a very high level.
Right.
You just know that they can be tweaked for better.
Right.
And so I think it's also a mindset of building, and it's a mindset of like, it's a mindset that has to come from the top. So they have to see, to me, it is how does my senior leadership team give me feedback? How do I take it? How do they see me respond to it? As kind of a model that, again, as you said, like cascades through the organization. And that's something that I'm continuously learning about how to do better.
And what we're finding is really setting the stage. So it's how we set those objectives. It's how we set up those conversations and the systems, but ensuring again that there's balance between looking at that individual and what they need. So how are they personally engaged in that role or that job within your organization? And then also too, things like training and development and looking at things instead of quote unquote, using your words, fixing, but forward looking and saying, okay, so didn't go as well as we wanted it to go. What's the next step? How do we pivot? Or what's a stretch goal with this? So there's a lot of things that we can implement from a performance perspective that can really help those conversations. So we don't get into that fight or flight mode, because it's almost like it's been systemic in all organizations, that when it comes to performance, it's almost like that fear and almost aggression, or highly competitive as to how do I get to a 6 versus a 5. And when actuality, it's about how are we adding value individually and how are we elevating ourselves? And then how are we helping our department and our whole organization grow as a whole and contributing as groups? So I find these conversations really interesting because it's almost like we're at a stage where it's an awkward dance and there's almost like one piece that's missing to really evolve those performance programs. And what we're seeing is it's on the human skill side of things, or soft skills. So how do we help our team members and leadership work on things like resilience and taking feedback or giving feedback? And how do we allow ourselves to be open around having these discussions, which originally may feel uncomfortable, but to your point, Jennifer, we're just putting all the cards on the table and looking to resource or work through things. Yeah.
And I think, for us as an organization, we're in such an interesting position because our raison d'etre is to build those human skills in the next generation of workers, right? So we all recognize that the technology will change, although we know that tech skills are going to be critically important for every job. But those human skills that we've identified as being so critical for success everywhere, we're working to design programs that instill those in youth. So are we as a team taking the time to make sure we have those skills? Do we have them as a team? Do we have them individually? Are we hiring for them? And so it's actually been a really helpful way to look at it, is if we're not, walking that talk, we shouldn't be out in community teaching it. It's the same way we view the work that we do in Indigenous communities. We cannot be working with Indigenous communities, delivering programming if we are not, as an organization, living a reconciliation kind of journey. So if we do not have Indigenous representation on our board and in our staff, and if we're not doing that kind of cultural training, and other things that go along with that. So I think that is a really, really critical thing for leaders to be looking at right now, is how are they embodying within their organizational structures and systems the work that they're out in community, either selling or delivering to their clients. So the human skills are critical and are part of what I am also trying to communicate from a thought leadership perspective, is that there's no pitting of technical skills to human skills, right? So that's been we've been seeing that in the media, in the narrative, is like, which is more important and where should the focus be, when in fact the two of them are so critical. One can't happen without leveraging against the other.
I would almost come back, Jennifer, to the analogy you were talking about earlier around, like, we can't just have our work and life balanced anymore. It's more about creating harmony between these two things. And I liken that to the same thing when you're talking about the technical skills as well as the human skills. It's, well, they actually feed into each other. And rather than trying to say, okay, well, I need to elevate in this section or this one here, but how can you utilize both of them together to help elevate your performance, or help you grow to progress a little bit further?
And I'll just say one other thing there, is that I think that combination of the doing this work differently and recognizing that life happens is also incredibly important from a diversity and equity perspective. And so for us, I have, for example, a big part of my work is around gender equity and fighting for women's equality in the economy and socially. And, if that has to be modeled at work, right? So, we need to start naming what those barriers are and kind of recognizing it. So for us, for example, it's, I see that there are women that work for me, high performing women that are still carrying the major load at home. So, you need to bring your kid to the office one day. You need to have some additional, time. You need to modify your work, like whatever that is. Because I need it. Like I've had to face that. So before the pandemic, I kind of had it under control, right? Kids were over here. My work was here. Very rarely did they cross over. And now, I mean, one of my kids is not like literally knocking continuously on the window, asking if she can have a specific snack from the kitchen. And so it's just, it is what it is, right? And then that's what's necessary for me to be able to do my job. And I think that the traditional ways of, how people show up at work are just, I hope that's over. I hope that, we're all recognizing that people will do their best possible work when they feel safe and comfortable and supported and, like their skills are recognized and bolstered through various resources available to them.
That was amazingly put from so many fronts in so many areas where it's really important and for all of us to hear. Kind of asking to take it a step further based on your inspiration. What are 3 words or ideas of yours that you would like the world to hear based on your inspiration?
So I would say right now that, the 3 kind of or concepts that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about are transformation. So how do I move beyond? And I think a lot of the time I have been focused on, improvements or, fixing or those kinds of things. And now I'm really trying to figure out what are the questions I need to ask? What are the things that I need to put in place for that kind of transformational change to happen, whether that's in our programs, in the business models that we're using, in the relationships that we have, and how I interact with my staff. So transformation is a big one. I would say relevance is one of my favorite all-time words. I always say, if we're relevant and excellent, everything else will kind of align. So, if we don't have the resources we have on an idea, but it is excellent and it is super relevant, it'll come. And so that relevance piece always makes sure that you're ahead on strategy, that you're aligning your team to what is absolutely needed based on a deep understanding of your stakeholders. And then third, I would just, there's so many things that I'm thinking about. I would say the third maybe is around, I'm spending a huge amount of time thinking about inclusion. And, how I do that as a leader, as an organization. We've always, because we're so much about that space and people are talking about it, what does it really mean? How do you hold people accountable for that? As a country, how, we're in a huge moment of reflection. And I believe that has to transcend what we all do at work, no matter what you're leading or what kind of company you're leading. There's a responsibility there as a citizen, as a Canadian, to address it. So, those are the things that I would say I'm thinking about. And I would, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd want other people to kind of spend some time reflecting on as well.
That's very powerful. And thank you so much for joining us for the 50th episode. You've knocked it out of the park and made it meaningful for us.
Well, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to have the chance to talk to you. And I think these are all such important topics that, we don't often get a chance to step back and talk about. So thank you for the time to reflect on some of these things.
Definitely. And we also appreciate your leadership and entrepreneurial insights that you've shared with our subscribers and Intuitive Performance. And for those who would like to learn more about Actua, we're going to provide a link to the company profile on the Elevate Business Podcast business page. Take good care. Thanks for listening to the Elevate Business Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the program. You can subscribe to future podcasts at intuitiveperformance.com, where you can also sign up for webinars and learn more about professional coaching and our facilitation solutions available to help fire up your whole person performance skills and drive actions for success. Until next time, stay true to you and take care of each other. We are all better together. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.